Thank you everyone for joining once again. It's really wonderful seeing both parents and teachers joining us today because let's be real, exam season doesn't just affect the learner, it also affects everybody around that learner. So whether you are a parent, whether you are a support system, or whether you are an educator, you also get affected. So I really want to acknowledge the educators, especially for joining us today. I know the incredible amount of work that goes into supporting learners during exam season. So this session is not about replacing teachers' expertise. It's about exploring practical tools that may help make revision and exam preparation feel more manageable for both teachers and families. I also want to say something very important before we continue. So I'm not an educator myself. I work in the education sector. I'm currently studying towards teaching, but I'm also a parent navigating this journey myself. So today's session is really about how Snapplify can support parents, teachers, and learners during exams as we go through this journey together. We'll look at practical tools, we'll look at routines, and we'll look at realistic support. So I was just thinking back to some time in my own home, how we go ahead and do things. And I have 3 children, which is a daughter in grade 1, a daughter in grade 4, and I have a son who recently matriculated. And one thing I had to go ahead and learn very quickly is that you can't go ahead and paint the one child with the other. So the one child might study one way, but it doesn't mean that the other child will study the same way. So I had to go ahead and look at different routines, different strategies to go ahead and help my son to complete his matric. And I know as parents, sometimes it feels very difficult for us to go ahead and navigate everything. And we're asking ourselves, how do we still go ahead and get time to go ahead and plan for revision or do study timetables and stuff? But today is merely about showing you the tools that is currently available and how you can go ahead and use it to reduce that pressure, to reduce that stress, and to see how your learner or your child can go ahead and benefit. We'll move on. I do see we still have some people. Thank you so much for those parents and educators who are adding their details over here. I appreciate it. So we'll move on. Honestly, I think many parents and teachers or educators, even school management, experience the same feeling of, are we as an education support team doing enough for our students, for our learners, for our children even? Because during exam season, everyone is trying to support learners in the best way they can. And that's really what today is about. Reducing pressure, creating manageable routines, and definitely exploring practical tools that can help support learners more effectively. So before we jump into the tools, I'd love to hear from the audience that we have over here. What is the biggest challenge during exam season right now? Um, if you don't see the chat option or where you can go ahead and chat, you can use the Q&A to go ahead and pop your questions or your answers in as well. I'll be able to go ahead and see it from there. So from the audience, if you can just pop in this little chat box or in the Q&A, what is the biggest challenge during exam season right now? What do you think it is? Let's take a moment to go ahead and answer the question on the screen. I'll view the chat to see what is the answers coming in. So focus of my child. Anybody else that sees any biggest challenges that's going through exams? Motivation of learners, anxiety, definitely. Learners that do not know how to study, I fully agree. I mean, we as parents, as educators, we all went through this period once upon a time in our lives as well. So we can definitely all relate to these answers that are coming up. And honestly, to be honest with you today, it's to help you go ahead and prepare those learners. So today is not a, oh, here's another tool, go ahead and use it, but it's to go ahead and make sure that our learners feel supported, that we have some structure, and that we can go ahead and make sure that when they step into that exam, that they are confident, no matter what grade they are. Because exam season can, let's be fair, let's be honest, it can quickly feel overwhelming, not only for learners, but for adults too. If I look back at my daughter, she's grade 4. So just thinking, she just came out of that foundation phase where her hand was held. And now, as a grade 4 student, you now have to learn to sit for an hour in an exam. You have no clue. You've never done an exam before because your teacher always used to help you in grade 3, 2, and 1. And now you have to go ahead and do it. So just imagine that stress that she is going through at the moment. And I'm sure there's other parents, other children, even other educators that are also feeling it. So let's see what we can go ahead and get out today, to make sure that our learners feel a lot more confident when they are sitting in these sessions. Oh, sorry about that. Let's move on. Okay. So one thing I think we all can agree on is that the exam season, like I've said before, very overwhelming. And I can see those answers still coming in of all the things that children experience, which is great. Um, Because for learners, there's pressure to perform. I know when I was on school, my mother always said, you saw your auntie's child, she had 90%, 95%. So I want you to also have that marks. So now you already have that anxiety. Oh, my cousin went ahead and performed so well. Now I also have to perform. It's almost like you have to keep up in the family. And then you also have the stress at school. So your teachers also want you to perform so well. And the child feels so anxious. They don't know if they are coming or going. They have all this pressure on them. And when they are sitting in that exam room, all these things are going through your mind. So, yes, we have high expectations for our children, but we also need to make sure that our children, as well as our students, our learners, they feel confident when they're walking in there. Okay. For learners, this pressure and uncertainty, it goes ahead and creates an environment that they'll go ahead and put in answers that they're not even sure is the correct answer. And that is something we don't want to go ahead and create. Okay. For teachers, we understand, educators, we understand you have also the stress, you're also feeling overwhelmed because you want your students to go ahead and excel. You want your students to go ahead and do well. You've gone ahead and put all the work in to make sure that they go ahead and do well. So you have that pressure of, are you giving enough revision support? Are you finding resources that supports the different learning needs? Is children, learners emotionally prepared? And then if we look at home, that is where there's more pressure because now we're, as parents, we're already navigating our daily lives. Now we have to go ahead and help with revision support. We have emotions that are all over. There's tension in the house, so we don't know if we are coming or we're going. And we are balancing, like I said, our everyday responsibilities. So, what do you think? Besides the things that I've mentioned before, and I don't know if I said this before, but we are going to have a bit of engagement session. So we are going to go ahead and use the chat box or the Q&A quite a lot. Okay. Um, so what is it that you think that children struggle with most during exam preparation, even when they are sitting in that exam room? What is it? There was a few things that was mentioned: concentration and focus, learners that does not read the question properly. So I do see some of those that came through. What else is there that we see that learners struggle with during the exams? So if you can just pop it in the Q&A. I do see Tanino saying his child not being able to focus, learners that do not know how to study. So you can just go ahead and pop it into the Q&A. That's totally okay. Anxiety, external pressure from others, not reading, not knowing how to answer the questions, study techniques, definitely, and not being able to draw up a timetable. I fully agree. I fully agree. Procrastination events. We look at it. They go ahead and they say they're going to start studying. And as we know, educators, I think we all can relate to this. I know I said I'm not an educator, but in the education field, we all can relate and say that we as schools go ahead and prepare our students. And we make sure that we try and get as much as our schoolwork done before we get to that exam period so that we can do revision. We make sure that we send out enough communication so that parents know when these exams are starting, correct? And we try and go ahead and give the children all the support they need. But the children are struggling. Our learners are struggling. We are struggling to find study techniques, like we said. We are struggling to go ahead and draw up a study timetable. And let's be fair, they are only in school. If I look, for instance, at my grade 1 or my grade 4, they have no idea what a timetable is. They've never drawn up a timetable. I that went through school, now I have to show them what it is. What is a timetable? And that's why I feel that today is going to be very beneficial, not just for educators, but for parents as well, because it will allow you to go ahead and start introducing your children, introducing your students to these tools. So, as we continue, I want us to take away from this point, I want us to take away one important thing is to always remember that learners are not struggling because they are incapable. No, they simply just do not know how to prepare effectively. And as we can see based on the chat that's happening, they are concerned with impressing parents, situations changing at them. There's different things that is happening that students are struggling with. Um, like the last question, like the last answer that Kelly gave is learners aren't able to interpret questions, rush in the exam. So yes, we have an hour, 2 hour exams, but no, we want to get done because we have that pressure on us and we don't want to be the last one sitting because maybe my friend is going to mock me outside and say, oh, you sat so long in the exam and I took my exam in 1 hour where you took it in 2 hours. So they have all of that pressure that they are going through. And we don't want to go ahead and create extra pressure for our children, for our learners. And that's why we feel that practical support matters. So, what is the practical ways to support learners? One of the most important things parents and teachers can do during exam season is to create some structure without creating pressure. That balance is very important. Some of the biggest things that help learners are manageable revision routines, whether this is at home or at school, active revision organization, as well as encouragement, you know. And of course, let's be fair, we need to set realistic expectations. We can't go ahead and set an expectation and know that we are not going to meet it. Exactly the same in the workplace. You know, when your boss says that you need to go ahead and achieve this by this time, we need to make sure that it's a realistic expectation that we are setting. Um, I look back and I think one thing me and my husband realized with our son was that we had to completely change our approach at home. So instead of telling him to go study, and this was last year, and every time I think back to it, I ask myself, how am I going to make sure that it's different with my grade 4 and with my grade 1? We had to start becoming more intentional. We began breaking subjects into smaller sections. We focused on one topic at a time. So instead of saying, go ahead and study the whole book or study what you've learned for that term, we said, no, let's look at what you studied for that term or what you've learned for that term. And now let's break it down into different sections. And you'll see later on in the webinar where I go ahead and take you through some demos where I go ahead and break actually the timetable down. Um, and then also we had to go ahead and do some revision, but with the revision, we would go ahead and ask him questions. We would encourage him to go ahead and summarize things in his own words. So not verbatim of what it is saying in the book, but on his understanding. And then also making them explain concepts back to us. And honestly, once we shifted from just study, 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 it was an active engagement because now you say go study, the child sits there with all of the books, and what are they reading? They're reading, they are going through the work, they're reading from the first page to the last page, but are they understanding what they are reading? No, they're not. So we had to make sure that there is constantly engagement with the information. And to be honest, we saw a difference. But now it is, he's done with school. So now we still have two left at school. And how are we going to change it for them? And before we move into the practical tools, I quickly want to touch on something very important. It is learner well-being. Um, so we look at learner well-being and we think to ourselves, what is it that this learner is struggling with? But we don't know. Sometimes learners doesn't go ahead and talk about it. They don't go ahead and say what it is that they are struggling. So we need to make sure that we go ahead and check in with our children. We go ahead and check in with our students. We need to make sure that are they getting the enough sleep that they need? Are they drinking water? Are they taking regular breaks? And of course, are they eating properly? Are they stepping away from screens? As we know, screen time is something that everybody goes ahead and they want to spend time on their phones. I looked and I spoke to my daughter the other day and I said, you are more on your phone and you're more watching TV than what you are actually opening a book. And she said, oh, my books are at school, it's in my locker. And I said, no, that is not fair. So I took the phone away and I said, I am reducing screen time now because now we are going to study. It's exams coming up. But you know, kids will go ahead and wrap us around their fingers and they will go ahead and try to do as much as possible so that they can go ahead and get what they want. And then, honestly, tired learners, if we think about it, um, I don't know if you, when you were growing up, did you go ahead and um, sit at night maybe and study, or the day before you were going through exams? And you can go ahead and pop this in the chat box and you can answer to me. um, what was your study routine like when you were growing up? Did you study late at night? Did you go ahead and study when you came from school or from university? Or did you wake up early mornings to go ahead and spend some time? You set that 2 hours aside to go ahead and study before you got done. How did you go ahead and do your studying? So if you can just quickly take 2 seconds and just pop it in the chat box. I was a night owl as I'm not a morning person. Yes, I can agree with that. Anybody else? Copy down all the notes and then made rhymes. It was last minute and created high pressure. I can fully agree. So if I look at myself, even so when I was busy with my exams, I would go ahead and study the night before. And on my way to college or on my way to school, I would just go ahead and browse through it, thinking that I would go ahead and remember it. But you are actually just creating more pressure for yourself. Study times was in the evening. Let's see, we have quite a few evenings. We have quite a few evenings. That is quite cool. Great. So while stress during exams can be normal, and the ongoing anxiety, the panic, the withdrawal, or the emotional shutdown, it should never be ignored. So I'll also leave a few support resources on screen. I'll pop it in the chat, or I'll go ahead and include it in the email that I send with you guys, to you guys later on. But I feel that the support resources can go ahead and help. So if you see that a child is maybe struggling, or they do need extra support, definitely go ahead and reach out to them, and see how you can go ahead and help them. I have posted a link in the chat box if you are able to see it. But alternatively, I'll go ahead and also pop it in my email, so that students can go ahead and reach out if they need that help. We'll move on now. Um, and we'll look at, like I've asked before, what was your routine while you were studying? But let's look at, have you currently in your household or in your classroom, have you gone ahead and started setting revision routines so that we can go ahead and prepare students? So let's just quickly take a few seconds to pop it in the chat box, and it can be just a yes or no, or maybe haven't started yet. Let's go ahead and take a look. So have revision routines already started at home or in the classroom? I see yes, yes, that's perfect. Yes, at home, that is totally perfect. And that is great. We do old exam papers in class, which is awesome. And even if you haven't started yet, that is totally okay. Okay. Some of us are still trying to navigate, and some of us have gone ahead and done it. Maybe we have done this already for years. We have gone ahead and we've set routines already for years. I love this one. Revisions happening daily when homework was not given to my child, which is great. That is totally great. So let's move on. So now let's move on to some practical tools. Okay, we had a bit of engagement session. So now I want to go ahead and show you the tools and the support systems that can help make exam seasons feel more manageable. These are not the only tools available, and I want to stress this out. It's not the only tools. I'm not going to say and force you to go ahead and only use these tools, but these are tools that you can go ahead and use to go ahead and support your child, your students, your learners, and even as an educator for yourself to go ahead and prepare you. But I also want to encourage that the tools that you currently have, do go ahead and use them as well. So any school provided tools, any educator recommendation, any parent support groups and strategies that works best for your learners, I definitely go ahead and I want to say continue using them. So the first thing that we want to look at today is Canva. So let me just quickly bring my screen over here. And I believe as educators, you are all familiar with Canva already. If you are not, this is what Canva looks like. So it's a platform where you can go ahead and do a lot of designing, a lot of preparation for any resources of any kind that you require. Okay. But I want to just show you some of the resources that I've gone ahead and created for my children when I was busy preparing for exams. So let's look at, for instance, my grade 4 one, because this is the one who I'm working very hard on. Say new in grade 4, it's fresh. Mom, I don't know how to study. How do I go ahead and study? So let me just make my screen a little bit bigger and you'll be able to see. So what a school went ahead and did is they sent us out a revision table of what they need to go ahead and revise for the exams. And as you can see on the screen, what I did was I worked out a weekly study plan. So never mind the colors, because we try for girls, we try and have the pink and stuff just to get their attention. But you can go ahead and design it how you want to, and you can do it all on here. What's great is also that here is an AI enabled on Canva. So you don't have to design everything from scratch. You can ask the AI to help you to design it, as long as you provide it with the prompts. So you'll see that I've worked out my weekly study plan, and this is what we're going to do before exams. What we do with this is we go ahead and paste it on the fridge. Not only is she looking at it, but we all as a family are looking at it at home. And you'll see that there are some rewards because, I mean, she's only 11 years old. So, Mom, what am I going to get if I sit whole week with my books? Mom, I'm done sitting with my books. What do I do now? So there's rewards for everything that you do. And there's also some reminders. And then importantly, we look at the week of the exam itself. So how are we preparing when we are going to write that exam? How are we going to be prepared for mathematics? Are we going to revise the day before? Yes, we are, but we've already covered mathematics in our weekly plan as well. So this is one of the tables that I've gone ahead and created. I want to show you another one. And my first focus is going to be on the parents, and then we're going to move to the educators because I want to show you something quite cool for educators. Um, The second one that we look at is a family planner. So, what are the things that we are going to focus as a family? It talks about the study timer. So, let me just make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. It talks about how much time we are spending on breaks, what is considered a long break, and what is considered a focused study session. You'll see it gives some tips. And what's nice about these is that you can paste it on the fridge. You can paste one in the child's room, maybe on the cupboard or wherever they go ahead and have space for it. And then also one on the fridge so everybody can see it. You'll see that we've added some weekly goals, some family agreements, and this is so that we can go ahead and not just create that stress for the child, but know that we are all supporting them. So when you do walk past your son or your daughter, you can say, okay, so let's touch on fractions because we went ahead and studied fractions on Monday. So give me some fraction answers. These are the questions, you know. If we look at natural science, you can touch on what is the why is a plant considered a living thing? And the child can go ahead and answer you. So this creates that engagement with your children. And now they're not going to feel the anxiety, but it also goes ahead and they don't feel anxiety, but they also go ahead and feel that, you know what, my parents are there to support me. My brother and my sister is there to support me. I do see we have a question in the chat box, and it says, does the same weekly planner apply to your grade one child and the one in matric? No, it does not. Okay, so you have to go ahead and adjust it for your child because the subjects that your grade 12 child is doing, your grade one child is not going to go ahead and do. Okay. And then we move on. So we now look at what can an educator. So I've shown you the planners that you as a parent can go ahead and do. And as an educator, don't feel that these planners cannot work for you. Okay, these planners can definitely go ahead and work for you, and you will adjust it according to your classroom. But as an educator, if we look at these study material, so what I like about this, oh, sorry about that. What I like about this is this was just something that I quickly created, and it goes ahead and breaks it down, the topics for a subject. So think about if you're giving this to a student, they will now be able to see for this topic, these are the things that we focus on. Um, and you can see here, I've broken it down, I've given some wording, and I've added some images so that they'll be able to go ahead when they are thinking back to maybe a particular topic or subject, they can think back to this image. And what's nice is if you as an educator are giving this to your students, or you go ahead and create something similar, your students will now be able to go ahead and paste it also on the fridge. Maybe they paste it on their wall, or wherever they have their things that they paste on, their chart or anything. You as a parent can now also go ahead and see what are the things that the child is touching on. Because let's be fair. If we look at mathematics, for instance, and I just want to show you what a mathematics um, one looks like that I've also created. If we look at mathematics, so as we know from grade 10 to grade 12, we get two types of mathematics, grade, which is mathematics pure, and then your mathematics literacy. If you look at this mathematics, to be honest with you, I do not understand it. Okay. Because I did mathematics literacy when I was homeschool. So now if I have to look at this, I'll have no clue. But I can go to my child and I can say, okay, let's take a look at functions and explain to me what the functions is. Because now I can see what's happening here. The teacher went and they've broken it nicely down for us as parents. Okay. Yes, it is for the students, but they've now broken it down so that they go ahead and they'll be going ahead and explaining it in simple terms for them. So here we can go ahead and see how this mathematics study guide would help your child. And it gives them some exam strategies. So as an educator, you can go ahead and include anything that you feel relevant for your student. Do we have any questions before I go ahead and move on? Okay. So let's go ahead and move on. The next thing that I want us to take a look at is BookBuddy AI. So BookBuddy AI is a tool that was developed by Snapplify. And you are probably going to say, so what happens if my school is not part of Snapplify? Then what? Would I still be able to go ahead and use BookBuddy? Yes, you will still be able to. So we'll look at two parts of it. However, BookBuddy you can go ahead and access on Snapplify Engage. You can also access it on WhatsApp, as well as you can access it on the Snapplify Reader. So if you are using the Snapplify Reader, you'll be able to access it on there. But if you're not using Snapplify Engage, don't worry. I will go ahead and show you how you can still go ahead and access BookBuddy. So the first step we'll look at is Engage, so Snapplify Engage. So if your school is part of Snapplify, this is where you'll be able to see BookBuddy. And once you click on AI, it will automatically come up. So I want to go ahead and I'm going to interact with this book. And I want just to go ahead and I'm going to ask it to summarize this book for me, but I'm going to explain it a little bit more in detail. So while it's going ahead and thinking, so what BookBuddy is any prescribed textbook that your school goes ahead and prescribe to you and that you need to go ahead and purchase as a parent. Um, on Snapplify, you'll be able to go ahead and interact with that book. Maybe it's a book that you have not gone ahead and purchased. I'll show you as we continue how to go ahead and interact with the textbook. So for instance, this Mind Action Series Life Science book. This is only one of the books, okay? And this is one of the books that I have on my account, but I've asked it now to summarize. You'll see that your chats will pop up here and you'll be able to go ahead and go back to your chats. And I just want to show you, I've asked it here to summarize the book for me, and it goes ahead and summarize, but that's not all that it does. It also goes ahead and you can go ahead and ask it exam questions. You can go ahead and ask it to prepare an exam paper for you. You can go ahead and ask it um, different terminologies related to that book. And what I love about it is that if English is not your first language, you'd be able to go ahead and interact in your home language. So maybe it's Afrikaans, maybe it is um, isiZulu, maybe it's isiXhosa, any home language that you do go ahead and speak, definitely go ahead and interact with it. The other part that I also love is that as a parent and as an educator, as a school, you will feel reassured because the reason why I'm saying it is because now you know that your child is interacting with the textbook. But what gives you that reassurance is that Book Buddy, sorry, Book Buddy only interacts with the content in the book. So it's not like other platforms where it's going to go ahead and search all over the internet. It's going to stick straightly to the book. So you now know that when a student goes home, they are interacting with that book particularly. They're not interacting with anything else. They are strictly sticking to the content. You as an educator will also be reassured because whatever it is that you taught in class, your child can now go ahead and ask it questions based on that. So that is something that I really enjoy about BookBuddy. And if your child is going through something, maybe they are battling with something, and as we know, children, they are always searching the internet for any random thing. Book Buddy will tell them to either reach out to a parent, to a guardian, to a teacher, school management, but it will not go ahead and entertain that conversation. And it will refer back to the previous conversation, which was based on the question that was asked for anything related to the book. Okay, so that is really great. I'm now going to go ahead and show you what it looks like on the other side. So this is, and I'm going to share this link with you so that you can go ahead and check it out. I'll just pop it in the chat. And if you do not get it, don't worry. I will also go ahead and share it in my email that I'll be sending to you. But this is BookBuddy Retail. Okay. So if your school is not part of Snapplify, if your school has not used Snapplify, never purchased an ebook from us, they have no clue what Snapplify is, definitely tell your school about us, let them come to us. But I also want to encourage you to go ahead and get onto this website because here I just want to show you we have a wide catalogs, and I do know we have a grade one child parent in this chat box or in the webinar. So definitely you'll see that there is resources for your grade one child, but it does not limit you for grade one only. There is all the grades, and as you can see, there's over 352. So definitely come check it out. But I want to show you how it looks on this website. So I've got a grade 5 book over here that I've interacted with, and I'm going to say launch book buddy. And I'm just going to show you a previous conversation I had with Book Buddy. So you'll see I asked it, I'm preparing for my mid-year exams and need revision ideas for my students. Please provide me with revision exam papers. So I was interacting as an educator, and it gave me topics to go ahead and revise. And then I said, but I want questions now based on these sections. So it gave me questions for the different sections in this particular book only. Okay, so didn't go look anywhere else. It was strictly for this book. And then I said, okay, I have the questions now, but now I need the memo. So when I do give this to my students, what am I going to mark? And it gave me the memorandum for those questions. So as a teacher, you or as an educator, you can go ahead and interact with your prescribed textbooks that your school prescribed for you. And you can say, do my lesson plans, or go ahead and provide me a lesson plan on this page number or on this particular topic. And what the aim is, or what Snapplify's aim is to reduce that admin time. You know, a lot of us spend a lot of time on admin preparing. Weekends, we are sitting with schoolwork. Holidays, we are sitting preparing just to make sure when we get back into the classroom that children are ready and we can go ahead and start teaching. And our aim is to reduce all of that admin time and to create more learning time. So I definitely feel that these tools will be super helpful, not only for educators, but also for parents and families to go ahead and prepare them. Okay, we are going to go ahead and move on. I do know we are running out of time, so we are going to go ahead and move on. And the next thing I want to show you is teacher resources, also part of Snapplify. And teacher resources is resources that is created by teachers for teachers. But I always say that even though it is created for teachers, it's also super beneficial for parents. Um, like if we look at maybe a particular topic that is being taught in class and we're not familiar with the topic, you can go ahead and come find it over here. Here's free resources, here's paid for resources, and you can go ahead and look for anything on here. Um, these are all of what we currently have. You'll see that this is on the home screen, but it does not limit you. Okay, if we go, I've already opened the tab before, but if we click on browse all, these are currently just free resources that I'm looking at. And if I remove all of these filters, you'll see that there's quite a huge number of resources. There's different curriculums, different grades, different types of resources. So this is teacher resources. And I'm going to share the link with you guys in an email. But I feel that with these three tools, you'll be able to go ahead and help the students to go ahead and be prepared. So as you can see, I've removed the filters. There is over 500. So there's quite a lot of, sorry, not 500, I got my number wrong, over 53,000 content that you can go ahead and access. And there's different types of resources that you'll be able to go ahead and interact with. Different grades, different curriculums. You can see all of the curriculums, international curriculums, your national curriculum. So definitely go ahead and explore these. You know, you have created your structure, you've gone ahead and created your timetable. Now it's making sure that students actually understand the content that is being taught in the classroom. Okay, we are going to be moving on as we come into the end of our session. And as we close today, I really want to leave everyone with this reminder. Supporting learners during exam season does not require perfection. I can't stress this enough. We don't need to be the perfect parent. We don't need to be the perfect educator. But it does require consistency. It requires encouragement, structure, and support. And sometimes the smallest changes can make the biggest difference. You are not alone this exam season. So whether you are a parent trying to navigate, trying to balance everything, or an educator supporting learners every single day, or someone simply trying to help a child feel more confident, remember that your support matters to that child. What we will focus on most after today's webinar. So just quickly in the Q&A, if we can just quickly, before we go ahead and close off, just answer this quick question. What will be your focus after today? To go ahead and help not just your students, but also your children. What is it that you will focus on to make sure that they are prepared? So just in the chat box, you can quickly just go ahead and say, and I'll just go ahead and look at those answers. We'll take 2 to 3 seconds with that. 3 and 5, which is motivation and mindset, and then support, communication and encouragement. Focus on their mental health and confidence. Make sure they are prepared. Use a variety of different revision techniques, definitely. Okay, I fully agree. And then you'll see I put some more on the screen as well. So definitely time management and planning. Studied strategies and techniques, as Ashley went ahead and mentioned, the different techniques, and then supporting their well-being and reducing stress. So we're not going to go home and say, I want you to go ahead and get 95%, but we're going to go ahead and change it. And we're going to say, let's look at ways that we can go ahead and make sure you feel confident that you will be able to go ahead and achieve a 95% mark. Let's go ahead and practice. Let's prepare. Okay. We have a parent over here that says, I will be focusing on developing routine, confidence building, and ability to operate these strengths. I really love that answer. Okay. Um, at the end of the day, we all want our students, our children to achieve great marks. But by putting that extra pressure and stressing them out, that's not going to help them to get there. Yes, they might go ahead and achieve it, but at the end of the day, we need to also think of their well-being. Do we want our children to constantly feel stressed, constantly be anxious, constantly feel that anxiety? No, we don't. We want our children to be relaxed. We want them to be confident. We want them to be well prepared, rested. Um, and we want to make sure that when they walk into that exam room, they can confidently say, I can ace this. Whether they are going to sit that 1 hour or whether they are going to sit that 2 full hours, no matter how long the exam is, but they'll be able to confidently walk out of there and say, I've got this. I know that I'm going to go ahead and do well. Okay. And as we close off, I do want to go ahead and thank everybody. I appreciate all the interactions that we did have today. We are coming to the end of our webinar, but I do want to reiterate that you don't have to do this alone. Okay. As a parent, as a teacher, as an educator, always at the beginning of the term, and I know a lot of parents and educators can relate to this, but always at the beginning of the year, at the term, educators always goes ahead and stress that this is the three-way street. It's not a teacher, student, learner thing. But now I want to stress to you, it's a four-way street. We can make it 5 ways, 6 ways as well, because there are different types of tools out there to go ahead and make sure that our students are prepared. So as parents, we'll go ahead and bring our part. As educators, they'll go ahead and bring their part. As learners, they can only go ahead and bring their part if they have the full support from both parties. And if we can go ahead and implement all these tools within our households, within our schools, and also go ahead and create structure and routine, I feel that we'll be able to go ahead and create great confident leaders out there. Students will be able to go out there and say, I can confidently go ahead and ace this. If you do feel that we haven't covered anything or you don't understand any of the tools that we have touched on today, don't hesitate reaching out to Snapplify. We are open 24/7 and we'll definitely be able to assist you with any questions that you do have. So I'd like to thank each one of you for joining me today. It was really a pleasure interacting with you. It was really a pleasure talking to you. And I look forward to being part of your journey as we go ahead and walk through this exam season. It's not just going to be this exam season that we'll be walking through, but we have other exams coming up. And I believe if we go ahead and start today, we can go ahead and create a structure going forward for our future leaders. Everyone, have a great afternoon, and it was great chatting to you.